Did you know that one actor in this film actually parachuted into Normandy on the real D-Day? He wasn't just playing a hero, he was one. Longest Day is more than a war movie. It's a time machine. Darryl F. Zanuck gathered the biggest stars in Hollywood and Europe. He spent millions, he rebuilt beaches, he hired armies, all to show one single day, June 6th, 1944, the day that changed the world. But behind the cameras, there were secrets, dangerous stunts, real tears, and moments that almost ended in disaster. Let's dive in and discover 20 weird and amazing facts about The Longest Day. Number 20. The producer who became a general. Darryl F. Zanuck didn't just produce this movie, he commanded it like a military operation. He woke up at 5 in the morning every single day. He wore military-style clothing on set. He carried a riding crop and walked through the filming locations like a general inspecting his troops. Some crew members even saluted him as a joke. But Zanuck wasn't laughing. He was deadly serious. He had dreamed of making this film for years. He read Cornelius Ryan's book about D-Day and became obsessed. He wanted every detail to be perfect, every uniform, every weapon, every blade of grass on the beaches of Normandy. Zanuck personally approved every scene. He watched every frame of footage. He fired people who didn't meet his standards. Some called him difficult. Others called him a genius. But everyone agreed on one thing. Without Zanuck's iron will, this movie would never have been made. He risked his own money. He risked his reputation. He risked everything. And when the film became a massive hit, nobody was surprised. Zanuck had fought for this movie like a soldier fights for victory. He didn't direct the battle scenes, but he directed everything else. What looked like a Hollywood production was actually one man's obsession brought to life. Number 19. 3 directors for one movie. Most films have one director. The Longest Day had 3. Ken Anakin directed the British sequences. Andrew Martin handled the American battle scenes. And Bernhard Wicki filmed all the German parts. This was almost unheard of in 1962. Studios usually wanted one creative vision, but Zanuck had a different idea. He believed that each section of the film needed someone who truly understood that culture. Ken knew British humor and reserve. Martin understood American grit and determination. Wicki could capture the German perspective with honesty and depth. The 3 directors rarely worked together in the same place. They filmed their sections separately, sometimes thousands of miles apart. Then Zanuck took all the footage and wove it together like a master weaver creating a tapestry. The editing room became his battlefield. He spent months cutting and rearranging scenes. Some directors would have been insulted, but Anakin, Martin, and Wicki understood the vision. They were pieces of a larger puzzle. And when the final film premiered, audiences couldn't tell where one director's work ended and another's began. The transitions were seamless. The tone was consistent. 3 visions became one story. What could have been a disaster became a triumph of collaboration. Number 18. John Wayne almost didn't make it. John Wayne was one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Everyone wanted him in The Longest Day. But Wayne almost said no. He was dealing with serious health problems. He had recently survived lung cancer surgery. Doctors told him to rest, to take it easy. But Wayne was stubborn. He read the script and fell in love with his character, Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Vandervoort. Vandervoort was a real hero who broke his ankle during the D-Day parachute drop, but kept fighting anyway. Wayne saw something of himself in that courage, so he signed on. But filming was brutal. Wayne had to wear a heavy cast on his leg for many scenes. He had to march. He had to shout orders. He had to look strong even when he felt weak. Some days the pain was so bad that he could barely stand, but he never complained. Not once. Between takes, he would sit quietly and catch his breath. Then the cameras would roll, and he would transform back into a fearless commander. His fellow actors watched in amazement. Robert Mitchum later said that Wayne's performance was one of the bravest things he ever witnessed, not because of what happened on screen, but because of what Wayne was hiding behind that confident smile. Real courage doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it just shows up to work. Number 17. The actor who lived his role. Richard Todd played Major John Howard in the film. Howard led the famous glider assault on Pegasus Bridge. It was one of the most daring operations of D-Day. But here's the incredible part. Richard Todd was actually there on the real D-Day. In 1944, Todd was a young paratrooper with the British 6th Airborne Division. He parachuted into Normandy in the darkness before dawn. He fought his way through enemy territory. He even met the real Major Howard during the battle. Now, 18 years later, Todd was playing that same moment on film. Think about how strange that must have felt. Standing on a movie set, wearing a costume version of his old uniform, pretending to do something he had actually done as a terrified young soldier. Between takes, Todd would sometimes stare at the horizon. His eyes would go distant. Cast members noticed but didn't ask questions. They understood. This wasn't just acting for Richard Todd. This was memory. This was honor. This was a chance to show the world what his friends had sacrificed. When you watch his performance, notice his eyes. There's something real there. Something that no acting school can teach. It wasn't a character looking at the beach. It was a man remembering the worst and best day of his life. Number 16. 42 stars in one film. Longest Day had the biggest all-star cast ever assembled at that time. 42 major actors appeared in the film. John Wayne, Henry Fonda, Robert Mitchum, Sean Connery, Richard Burton, Rod Steiger, Sal Mineo, Red Buttons, and many more. Getting all these stars to agree was a miracle of negotiation. Many of them had conflicts. Some didn't like working with certain other actors. Several wanted top billing. Zanuck solved this problem brilliantly. He paid everyone the same salary. Every star received the exact same amount of money, no matter how big their role. This way, no one could claim they were more important than anyone else. He also limited screen time. No single actor dominated the film. Even John Wayne appeared for only about 15 minutes. This frustrated some egos, but served the story perfectly. The Longest Day wasn't about one hero. It was about thousands of heroes. By spreading the spotlight across dozens of characters, Zanuck captured the true spirit of D-Day. Everyone played a part. Everyone mattered. The famous faces became just faces in a crowd of courage. Some stars struggled with this. They were used to being the center of attention. But when they watched the finished film, they understood. Their small piece of the puzzle helped create something unforgettable. Fame stepped aside. History took center stage. Number 15. The Beach That Became a Time Machine. Zanuck insisted on filming at the actual D-Day beaches in Normandy. Replicas, not California coastlines, dressed up with fake signs. The real Omaha Beach, the real Utah Beach, the real Pointe du Hoc. This decision cost millions of extra dollars. The production had to transport equipment across the Atlantic Ocean. They had to deal with French permits and regulations. They had to work around unpredictable weather on the English Channel. But Zanuck refused to compromise. He believed that the sand itself held memory, that the cliffs remembered the soldiers who climbed them, that the waves still carried echoes of that terrible morning. When the cast and crew arrived in Normandy, something changed. Jokes stopped. Voices grew quieter. Even the biggest stars felt small standing on that beach. Robert Mitchum later described it as standing in a church. Rod Steiger said he couldn't eat lunch the first day. The weight of history pressed down on everyone. Local French people came to watch the filming. Some of them had been children during the real invasion. They brought flowers. They cried. They thanked the actors for remembering. What was supposed to be a movie set became a memorial. Cameras captured more than performances. They captured reverence. You can see it in every frame. That beach wasn't pretending to be sacred. It already was. Number 14. The parachute jump that went wrong. The Paratroopers' night drop into Normandy was one of the most dangerous operations of D-Day. Thousands of young men jumped into darkness over enemy territory. Many landed in the wrong places. Some drowned in flooded fields. Others were shot before they hit the ground. Recreating this sequence for the film was equally terrifying. Zanuck hired real paratroopers to perform the jumps. These weren't stuntmen. They were active military soldiers who volunteered for extra pay. One night during filming, everything went wrong. The wind shifted suddenly. Paratroopers began drifting off course. Some landed in trees, others splashed into marshes. One soldier broke his leg on impact. Another nearly drowned before crew members pulled him out. The cameras kept rolling through all of this. Zanuck later debated whether to use the footage. The chaos was realistic, too realistic. It showed genuine fear on faces. It showed bodies tumbling out of control. In the end, he used much of it. He felt that audiences deserved to see something close to the truth. The paratroopers of 1944 didn't have perfect landings. They didn't float gently to earth like feathers. They crashed and stumbled and improvised. The film honored that reality. When you watch those parachutes fill the night sky, remember that real men were risking real injury. Not for glory, not for fame, just to get the story right. Number 13, Sean Connery. before James Bond. In 1962, Sean Connery was not yet a superstar. He was a Scottish actor, struggling to break through. He had appeared in small British films. He had done television work, but Hollywood didn't know his name. Then he got cast in The Longest Day as Private Flanagan, a simple Irish soldier. It was a tiny role, just a few minutes of screen time, a handful of lines. Connery didn't complain. He was happy just to be included in such an important production. He arrived on set eager to learn from the bigger stars around him. He watched John Wayne command attention without raising his voice. He studied Robert Mitchum's effortless cool. He absorbed everything like a sponge. A few months after wrapping his scenes for The Longest Day, something incredible happened. Connery was cast as James Bond in Dr. No. The film was released the same year. Suddenly, the unknown Scottish actor became the most famous secret agent in movie history. But chronologically, audiences might have seen him first as Private Flanagan, a nervous soldier clutching a rifle on a stormy beach. Strange to think about. One of the most iconic action stars of all time began his rise playing a scared kid on D-Day. Connery never forgot that experience. He called The Longest Day his finishing school for becoming a movie star. Number 12, the French resistance fighter who stole hearts. Irina Demick was a young French actress when Zanuck discovered her photograph. He was instantly captivated. He decided she must be in the film, but there was no obvious role for her. The story focused on soldiers, on general, on military strategy. Women barely appeared in the script, so Zanuck created a character just for Demick. She would play Janine Boitard, a member of the French resistance who helps Allied soldiers. The role was small, but significant. It showed that D-Day wasn't just about armies. It was about ordinary people risking everything for freedom. Demick threw herself into the part. She learned to handle weapons. She practiced her English until it was perfect. She studied real resistance fighters and their techniques. On screen, she brought warmth to a brutal story. Her scenes offered brief moments of tenderness amid all the violence. Audiences responded powerfully. Letters poured into the studio praising her performance. Critics called her a revelation. Zanuck had taken a chance on an unknown face, and it paid off beautifully. Demick went on to appear in several more films, but she always credited The Longest Day with changing her life. One photograph led to one role, which led to one career. Hollywood loves stories like this. A random moment of luck, a producer with vision, and a young woman ready to seize her chance when it came. Number 11. Robert Mitchum's Dangerous Stunt. Robert Mitchum played Brigadier General Norman Cota, one of the heroes of Omaha Beach. Cota was famous for rallying his men during the darkest moments of the assault. He walked through gunfire as if he were invincible. He shouted courage into terrified soldiers, became a legend. Mitchum wanted to honor that legacy. So when the script called for Cota to lead men up the beach, Mitchum insisted on doing it himself. No stunt double. No camera trick, just a 54-year-old actor sprinting through explosions. The special effects team warned him the beach was rigged with buried charges that would detonate to simulate artillery shells. The timing was precise, but not perfect. One wrong step could be fatal. Mitchum listened, nodded, then did the scene anyway. Take after take, his legs pumping through wet sand, fire erupting around him, smoke burning his eyes. Crew members held their breath every single time. Zanuck watched through binoculars and muttered prayers. But Mitchum never stumbled, never flinched. When the director finally yelled cut, the crew burst into applause. Mitchum just shrugged and asked for a cigarette. He later downplayed the whole thing, called it just another day at work, but everyone who witnessed it knew better. That wasn't acting. That was a man proving he deserved to play a hero. Number 10. The German dialogue. That was real, German. Most Hollywood war films took shortcuts with language. German soldiers would speak English with accents. French characters would use broken grammar. Audiences were expected to just go along with it. Zanuck hated this approach, believed it disrespected both the story and the viewers. So he made a revolutionary decision. All German scenes would be filmed in actual German. All French scenes would be filmed in actual French. Dubbing. No fake accents. Real languages spoken by native speakers. This meant hiring German and French actors for many key roles. It meant providing subtitles for American audiences. It meant extra expense and extra complications at every turn. Zanuck refused to back down. He argued that the Nazis didn't speak English on D-Day, neither did the French villagers hiding from bombs. Why should a movie pretending to tell the truth tell lies about something so basic? The result was startling. Audiences in 1962 weren't used to reading subtitles during Hollywood blockbusters. Some complained at first, but most quickly adjusted. The authentic languages added weight to every scene. When a German officer gave orders, it felt real. When French civilians whispered in fear, it felt genuine. The film respected its subjects enough to speak their words. That small choice made everything else more believable. Number 9. The cost that stunned Hollywood. The Longest Day cost approximately $10 million to make. In today's money, that would be over $100 million. It was one of the most expensive black and white films in history. Every studio executive in Hollywood thought Zanuck was insane. Black and white movies were supposed to be cheap. That's why studios still made them in the early 60s. Color film cost more and required more complicated lighting. But Zanuck chose black and white for artistic reasons, not financial ones. He believed that D-Day should look like the newsreels that captured it. He wanted audiences to feel like they were watching history, not entertainment. So the money went elsewhere, into thousands of extras, into authentic military equipment, into location shooting across 3 countries, into hiring dozens of international stars, into building replica landing craft and fortifications, into endless months of filming in difficult conditions. Studio accountants panicked. They warned that the film could never earn back its budget. They urged Zanuck to cut scenes, to trim the cast, to compromise. Zanuck refused every suggestion. He knew what he was making, and he was willing to bet his career on it. When the film premiered and became a worldwide smash hit, those same accountants suddenly claimed they had supported the project all along. Money does strange things to memory, but Zanuck never forgot who believed in him and who didn't. Number 8. Henry Fonda's moving performance. Henry Fonda played Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., the son of President Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt Jr. was one of the oldest soldiers to land on D-Day. He was 56 years old and walked with a cane due to arthritis, but he insisted on being first off the boat at Utah Beach. He wanted to lead by example. Fonda, himself an actual World War II veteran, understood this character completely. He had served in the Navy during the war and knew what military courage looked like. His performance captured Roosevelt's combination of physical frailty and spiritual strength. One scene became especially powerful. Roosevelt realizes that his men have landed on the wrong beach. They are a mile from where they should be. Any other officer might have panicked, might have ordered a retreat. But Roosevelt just smiles. "We'll start the war from right here," he says calmly. Fonda delivered that line with quiet determination that brought tears to many viewers' eyes. It was a moment of pure leadership, of adapting to impossible circumstances without losing hope. The real Roosevelt died of a heart attack just weeks after D-Day. He never saw the end of the war he helped win. Fonda knew this when he played the scene. You can feel it in his eye. A man saying goodbye without knowing it wasn't just acting. It was tribute. Number 7. The extras who were real soldiers. Zanuck needed thousands of soldiers for the beach assault scenes. Hiring that many extras would have been impossibly expensive. He made deals with several governments. French army units agreed to participate. So did American military forces stationed in Europe, and some former German soldiers volunteered. These weren't actors pretending to be warriors. They were actual trained fighters, following actual military commands. The authenticity showed immediately. When officers yelled orders, the extras responded with genuine discipline. When charges exploded, their reactions were properly frightened. When the cameras captured masses of men running toward danger, they moved like troops, not like crowds. This created both benefits and problems. Soldiers sometimes got carried away. They treated filming like a training exercise. Some forgot they were supposed to fall when shot. Others advanced too quickly and ruined takes. Directors had to constantly remind everyone that this was a movie, not an actual battle. But the energy was incredible. The beach scenes crackle with barely controlled chaos. You can feel the weight of thousands of bodies pressing forward. You can sense the confusion and fear and determination. Hiring real soldiers was risky. It was unpredictable. It was also absolutely the right choice for a film determined to show the truth. Number 6. The Clock That Stopped Nations. One of the film's most memorable moments involves a church clock. As paratroopers prepare to jump into Normandy, the camera shows a French village at night. Everything is peaceful. A clock tower stands silent against the stars. Then planes roar overhead. Then parachutes bloom in the darkness. Then the battle begins. Zanuck filmed this sequence with extraordinary care. He believed that the contrast between peace and violence was the heart of D-Day. One moment, a village sleeps. The next moment, history crashes through its doors. The clock becomes a symbol. It represents all the ordinary moments that war destroys, all the quiet nights that ended at midnight on June 6th, all the simple lives interrupted by forces beyond anyone's control. Audiences around the world connected with this image. It didn't matter if they were American or French or German or Japanese. Everyone understood what a peaceful village looks like. Everyone understood what violence looks like. The clock bridged those two realities in one haunting shot. Critics at the time called it one of the most powerful images in war film history. It had no dialogue, no stars, no action, just a stone tower marking time in a world about to change forever. Sometimes the quietest moments speak loudest. That was true on D-Day, and it was true in the movie that remembered it. Number 5. The music that defied expectations. Zanuck hired composer Maurice Jarre to create the film's score. Jarre was young and relatively unknown. He had not yet won the fame that would later make him legendary. Some studio executives questioned the choice. Why not hire an established Hollywood composer? Someone safe, someone proven. Zanuck trusted his instincts. He believed Jarre understood something important about war. The French composer had grown up during the Nazi occupation of France. He knew what invasion felt like. He knew how fear sounded in ordinary homes. Jarre created a score that was bold and unusual. Instead of stirring marches and heroic fanfares, he wrote music that was often quiet and mournful. He used unusual instruments. He created moments of uncomfortable silence. He refused to tell audiences how to feel. The music asked questions instead of providing answers. Was this triumph or tragedy? Victory or loss? Both at once? Many listeners found the score unsettling at first. They expected drums and trumpets and swelling string. Instead, they got complexity, ambiguity, honesty. Over time, appreciation grew. Jarre's score won the Academy Award. It became recognized as one of the finest war film soundtracks ever composed. What seemed strange in 1962 now seems ahead of its time. Jarre understood what Zanuck understood. D-Day was not simple, and neither should be the music that accompanied it. Number 4. The scene that made veterans weep. Test screenings for The Longest Day included some actual D-Day veterans. Zanuck wanted their reactions. He wanted to know if the film felt true. What happened stunned everyone involved. The Omaha Beach sequence, several veterans began crying uncontrollably. Some had to leave the theater. Others sat frozen, unable to move or speak. One man stood up and saluted the screen. The crew members present didn't know how to react. They had worked so hard to create realistic battle scenes. They had used every trick they knew, but they hadn't expected their work to unlock traumatic memories. After the screening, Zanuck met privately with some of the veterans. He apologized if the film had caused pain. The veterans shook his hand and thanked him. They said the pain was worth it. For years, they had tried to explain D-Day to their families. Their children didn't understand. Their wives couldn't imagine it. Now there was a film that showed something close to the truth. Now there was a way to say, "This is what I survived," without having to find the impossible words. Zanuck never forgot that moment. It changed how he thought about his work. A movie wasn't just entertainment. It could be a bridge between experiences, between generations, between those who were there and those who never could be. Number 2. The premiere that changed history. The world premiere of The Longest Day took place in Paris on September 25, 1962. The location was meaningful. France had suffered under Nazi occupation for 4 years. D-Day had been the beginning of liberation. Now a film commemorating that liberation would debut in the French capital. The premiere was the most glamorous event Paris had seen in years. Movie stars arrived in elegant cars. French politicians mixed with Hollywood legends. The red carpet stretched for what seemed like miles. Inside the theater, silence fell as the lights dimmed. What followed was 3 hours of emotional devastation. The French audience watched their country's liberation unfold on screen. They saw young men dying on beaches they recognized. They heard French dialogue spoken by French actors. They remembered. When the film ended, no one moved. Then slowly, people began to stand. They applauded. They cried. They embraced strangers. The ovation lasted nearly 15 minutes. Outside, crowds who couldn't get tickets listened through the theater walls. Word spread through Paris that night. This wasn't just a movie. It was a memorial. It was gratitude. It was a nation saying thank you through tears. The premiere in America a few weeks later was grand, but it couldn't match the raw emotion of that night in Paris. Some art arrives at exactly the right place at exactly the right moment. The Longest Day found its home. Number 1. The book that started everything. Before there was a movie, there was a book. Cornelius Ryan was an Irish journalist who had covered World War II as a war correspondent. He was there on D-Day. He witnessed the invasion from a bomber flying over the beaches. The images never left him. Years later, Ryan decided to tell the complete story of D-Day, not just the generals and the strategy, the ordinary soldiers, the French civilians, the German defenders, everyone whose life changed on June 6th. He spent years researching. He interviewed hundreds of survivors from all sides. He read countless documents and letters and diaries. He traced movements minute by minute. The result was a masterpiece of narrative history. Published in 1959, The Longest Day became an immediate bestseller. Readers around the world connected with Ryan's humanizing approach. He made statistics feel like people. He made history feel like yesterday. Zanuck read the book and knew immediately that it had to become a film. He bought the rights for a modest sum before anyone else realized what they were worth. Ryan was hired as a consultant and helped ensure the film stayed true to his vision. He visited sets. He advised on details. He watched his words become images. Sadly, Ryan's health was fragile. He would die young from cancer in 1974. But he lived long enough to see his book inspire one of the greatest war films ever made. Every frame of The Longest Day carries his spirit, his curiosity, his compassion, his determination to remember what others might forget. The movie belongs to Zanuck and the directors and the stars, but the soul belongs to Cornelius Ryan, a journalist who believed that every soldier's story deserved to be told. Bonus fact: the landing craft that sailed again. One of the film's biggest challenges was finding enough landing craft. The famous Higgins boats that carried soldiers to the beaches were almost all gone by 1960. They had been scrapped after the war, sold for parts, left to rust in forgotten harbors. Zanuck's production team searched everywhere. They found a few preserved in museums. They located others in private collections. But they needed dozens for the beach assault scenes. Then someone had a remarkable idea. Why not build new ones from the original blueprints? The production company tracked down technical drawings from the Higgins factory in New Orleans. They hired shipbuilders who had actually worked on the original boats during the war. These old craftsmen came out of retirement. They touched blueprints they hadn't seen in 20 years. And slowly, carefully, they built new Higgins boats exactly as they had built the originals. When the new landing craft hit the water off Normandy, something magical happened. The old shipbuilders wept. They said the boats handled exactly like they remembered. They said it was like sailing into the past. Some of these replica Higgins boats still exist today. They appear in museums and commemorations. They carry veterans on anniversary sailings. They connect the present to a moment that defined the 20th century. What began as a production problem became a labor of love. What started as necessity became preservation. The men who built the boats that won the war returned to build the boats that remembered it. Old hands, old skills, old devotion, new purpose. The Longest Day is more than a war movie. It's a promise kept, a promise to remember, to honor, to never forget what ordinary people can achieve when everything is at stake. Darryl F. Zanuck gathered the greatest stars of his era. He hired thousands of extras. He rebuilt beaches and landing craft. He created chaos and beauty and terror, all to capture 24 hours that changed history. But beneath all that spectacle lies something simpler: human stories, human courage, human fear, a young paratrooper floating into darkness, a general walking calmly through gunfire, a clock tower standing silent before the storm. These images stay with us because they feel true, because somewhere we know they happened, because the men who lived them deserve to be remembered. If you enjoyed these stories, subscribe for more. Every movie hides a truth, and we'll keep uncovering them, one story at a time.